Hi Twitter, hi Periscope, good afternoon world. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the virtual book fair on Twitter Live. I'm Rachel Churcher, author of the Battleground series, and thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much as well to Mary and to Our Own Right for organising this amazing book fair. Indie authors rely on going to book fairs and events to meet you, our audience, and so this is a wonderful opportunity for us to share our work with you and for you to talk to us even during lockdown. Thank you for joining us. I'd love to tell you about my books, and I'll be giving you a sneak preview of two of them in a moment. I'm very much hoping this is actually appearing on a feed somewhere. I'm seeing some people watching, so that's great. Just quick housekeeping, I have never used Twitter Live before. Apart from a couple of test videos yesterday and today. So if you can't hear me, if you're having problems with my feed, drop a tweet or somehow let me know on the feed and I'll see what I can do. After the readings, I'd love to answer your questions about the books, about writing, about indie publishing. So tweet your questions, add them to the Periscope feed, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. So a quick introduction to the Battleground series. It's an award-winning 5-book series, and I'd describe it as friendship-based young adult. It's almost entirely romance-free, almost, because it's a dystopia. And I think my characters have enough to worry about without adding romance and love triangles and other confusions and distractions into the mix. They're trying to save themselves and they're trying to save their country from a corrupt government, and they need good friends who will look out for each other, keep each other safe. And it's really about building the family you need from the friends you have when you need them. Someone on Twitter yesterday was asking for clean YA. So I don't really know what to say about this. There's violence in the Battleground series. There are guns and action and characters die. Not going to tell you any more than that. But the books are about bravery and friendship rather than romance. So if that makes them clean YA, then there you go. So on with the readings. What would you do if your government turned against you? And what if you had the chance to fight back? And that's the question that I pitch in the books with my characters, just to see, sort of experiment, find out what would happen. So this is book 1, and the first reading will come from book 1. So the Battleground series is set in the UK after Brexit and Scottish independence. In the section I'm going to read, my protagonist, 16-year-old Bex Elman, has been taken from her school by army recruiters and conscripted into the recruit training service. She's in an army training camp, being trained to represent the government on the streets and to deter terrorists from attacking civilians. But the point of the training is to produce soldiers who will look out for civilians and not get caught on TV cameras helping each other instead. But Bex refuses to do this and insists on looking out for her friends. And she's about to find out that this won't win her any favours at camp. Morning run. We're back on the long route again, now that we're getting used to wearing our armour. Across the bypass and the railway and along the main road, where people driving past can see us. Through the industrial estate and back through the woods. I'm running with Dan, talking when we get the chance. We're following a narrow path between the trees, dodging roots and muddy puddles. Ketty pushes past. Up for a sprint, Dan? Dan glances at me and I shrug. Sure, he says, and grimaces at me over his shoulder. Dan and Ketty run ahead, and I take the opportunity to slow my pace and enjoy being outside in the woods. It's a bright morning, and I'm making good time. I take the chance to look around and notice the trees, the deep green of the undergrowth, the bird song. For the first time, I find myself thinking about how beautiful it is out here. There's a shout from behind me, and I turn back to see what's wrong. I jog back along the path towards a group of recruits gathered round someone on the ground. My happy mood dissolves. It's Saunders. He's caught his foot on a root and tripped. I reach the group and see that his foot is twisted behind him at an awkward angle. I'm pretty sure it's broken. Amy and Jake are standing over him. Amy is holding his hand, trying to help him stand. I grab his arm and haul him up, supporting his injured side. I look around for a senior recruit, but they're all ahead of us. We're the last runners at the back of the group. I've got you, Saunders. You okay? He grunts and grips my elbow. I put his arm round my shoulders and wrap my arm across his back to support his weight. He holds the injured foot off the ground and hops alongside me as I start to walk. You guys should keep going. Run ahead and let someone know that Saunders is injured. Tell them we're coming. Amy protests, but Jake takes her arm and gently pulls her away. They run on together, glancing back at us until they're out of sight between the trees. It's just the two of us. I'm not sure that we can make it to the gate, but I can't tell Saunders that. It's not far now, I say, wrapping my arm more tightly round him. I've got you, just keep moving. His breathing is laboured and he's obviously in pain, but we keep going. It takes 20 minutes to get through the woods, but I can see the fence and the route back to the gate. The bright sky has clouded over and the day is looking grey and gloomy. We reach the fence and turn along the short path past the camp. I can see everyone else lining up. I can see everyone else lining up for weapons training, and I know we're going to be late, but we push on, past the dorm buildings, past the row of army vehicles, and up to the guard post at the gate. We're going to make it. The gate is shut when we reach it. 2 guards stand behind the wire mesh, staring out at the road behind us. We walk up to the gate. The guards keep their eyes on the road, ignoring us. "Let us in, will you?" I call out. One of the guards looks at me and shifts his gun to a combat pose. "Seriously?" I shout. "We need to get to a doctor. Open the gate." "I don't know who you are. Orders are not to let anyone else in." And he looks away again, back at the road behind me. This must be a misunderstanding. I help Saunders to sit down on the grass near the gate, then walk over and grab the metal mesh with both hands. I'm angry now and I'm shouting, "Hey, open up!" Both guards lift their guns and point them at me. I freeze, my hands gripping the gate. "Back off! Hands in the air!" They both take a step towards me, keeping me in their sights. I obey, lift my hands and take a step back. I can't believe they're doing this. "We're late back from the run. You know who we are. Saunders needs a doctor. I think he's broken his ankle. Let us in. We'll go straight to medical." "Can't do that." They're still pointing their guns at me. They're serious. They're not going to open the gates. My hands are shaking, but I can't let them leave us out here. I can't let them leave Saunders here in pain. "Fetch someone to verify who we are. Just get us back inside." The guards exchange a look. Then one of them returns his gun to a patrol hold and walks to the gatehouse. He speaks to someone on a radio and returns to the gate. The other guard keeps his gun aimed at me. I'm looking down the barrel of a gun. I should be afraid, but my anger is stronger than my fear. I can't stop myself from fighting back. "So," I ask, "is someone coming?" The guard shrugs and starts watching the road again as if I'm not here. I turn back to Saunders. He's sitting with his legs in front of him, slumped over, head bowed. He needs a doctor, but there's nothing more I can do. There are footsteps on the path. I turn back in time to see Ketty, walking briskly towards the gate. "Please," I begin, but Ketty's already talking to the guards. "They're late. Leave them out there." "How long?" asks one of the guards. Ketty starts to walk away. "I'll let you know," she calls over her shoulder. Both guards resume their patrol positions and focus their attention on the road. I sit down next to Saunders and put my hand on his arm. "I'm sorry," I whisper. "I can't think of anything else to say." "I'm sorry," he says through clenched teeth. He's fighting back tears and I know he's in pain. I've got nothing to give him. I can't help. My anger and my bravery melt away as I watch the guards staring past us, guns ready. I put my arm round his shoulders and wait. So that was the sequence from book 1. But what if you could hear that section of the story from Ketty's point of view? Ketty is an instructor at the camp, and she can't stand the fact that she's training recruits who don't want to be there and don't want to follow the rules. What you need to know is that Ketty's nickname for Saunders, the boy with the broken ankle, is Sleepy. This section is from False Flag, book 2 in this series, as narrated by Ketty. We've been training the hopeless puppies in their armour for weeks. They can run in armour now, and most of them can get their guns in and out of their clips when they need to. It's my week to lead the morning run, so we set out across the bypass and the railway and take the route through town to show off the kids to the citizens of Leominster. Hopefully they're telling their friends about the wonderful, brave young people stationed in their town. It's a gorgeous morning, sunshine with the occasional bright cloud, and we're making good time. I stop the traffic when we cross the bypass again to come back to camp, and I'm catching up with the group when I notice Sleepy running at the back with some of Elman's little fan club. He's still clumsy in his armour, and he's obviously exhausted and dragging his feet. As usual, his bootlaces are untied. I should probably tell him, but looking ahead, I can see an opportunity to break up Elman's happy family and maybe teach them to run with the others. They're not the only kids on site, and they need to work with everyone. Good luck, whipping boy. Learn the hard way that your laces won't tie themselves. I run past Sleepy to where Elman and Pierce are running together. Inseparable, these two. I push between them and challenge Pierce to a sprint. He's up for it, and we sprint together along the path through the woods. Mummy Elman can learn to run by herself without Dan to hold her hand. We run past the other recruits and make it back to the gate ahead of the group. I thank Dan for the sprint, send him on to Jackson's gun training session, and wait for the others to arrive. It's clouding over as I wait for the runners. Looks as if it might rain. One by one, group by group, they run through the gate, following my shouted orders to line up on the field with Jackson. There's a pause when there's no one in sight along the path. I've counted everyone in, and we're missing 4 recruits. And then Brown and Taylor are running around the final corner, out of breath. I shout to them to get to the field, but they stop, pointing back along the path. It's Saunders! He's busted his ankle! Saunders. Mr. Sleepy. That'll teach him to tie his shoelaces. Bex is helping him. They'll be here as quickly as they can. Thank you, recruits. Get yourself to Jackson's session. I'll deal with this. They walk away towards the field, glancing back at the gate. I wait until they're out of sight, round the corner of the closest dorm, and then tell the gate guards to close the gates. One of them clips his gun and runs to pull the gates closed. The other wants to know why we can't wait for the recruits. They're late, and they know that we close the gates after the run. If they can't get themselves back here on time, let them wait until I'm ready to let them in. So you want us to keep them here? I smile. Yes, I do. I'm ordering you not to let anyone else in. I need to be somewhere else. I can't verify their identities. Who knows what might have happened on the run? We lost sight of the recruits. They could be terrorists in stolen uniforms. The guard nods, and the second guard returns my smile. No problem. We can keep them here. No sense in taking any risks, eh? None. I can trust you on this, right? No one comes through without my permission? They're both grinning now. No one. We'll make sure of it. So I leave them to do their jobs. I have better things to do than wait for Mummy Elman and her invalid. Jackson is busy on the field with the gun training, and I have paperwork to do for the commander. I sit at my usual table in the senior dining room and get to work, glancing out of the window every so often to see what happens at the gate. And it is glorious. She's practically carrying him. He's leaning on her, hopping his pathetic way beside her in painful slow motion. She leads him up to the gates and shouts something at the guards, who don't let me down. One of them stares straight ahead, as if these 2 sad recruits are invisible. The other lifts his gun to a combat-ready position. But does she back off? Does she put her hands up and wait? This is Elman! An Elman with a wounded body! Of course she doesn't! She shouts back at them, guns or no guns. This kid really needs to learn some self-preservation skills. The guards ignore her, and she stands there, disbelief on her face. The guards continue to ignore her. I'm laughing under my breath. Life isn't fair, Elman. Just because you've been a nice person today, that doesn't let you get around the rules. Eventually, she gets the message and walks Sleepy over to the grass verge, swings him down so he's sitting on the ground. I wait for her to sit down as well, but instead, she walks back to the gate. I've forgotten my paperwork now. This is all about Elman. She walks right up to the gate, grabs the chicken wire with both hands and starts shouting at the guards. And the guards raise their guns. I punch the air. I owe these guys a drink. This is perfect. How's that mother complex treating you now, Elman? Should have left him on the path. But she doesn't back down. Not until the guards step towards her, guns pointing at her head. She lifts her hands and steps away from the gate, but she's still talking. I'm standing at the window now in the shadows. I can't believe she's picking a fight with armed guards. One of them heads back to the guard hut and my radio crackles to life. Gatehouse to Ketty, we could use some backup here. On my way. How the hell is one little girl freaking out my guards? This shouldn't be a challenge, leaving 2 late, slow, unarmed recruits outside the gate until I say they can come in. I hurry to the gate before the commander notices what's going on. I'm authorised to solve my own problems, but if one of the guards gets twitchy and calls the commander, I'll have some inconvenient explaining to do. Don't you dare get me into trouble, kid. I've got more invested here than you know, and I need the commander on my side. Sit down and shut up until I decide you're coming back in. Sleepy looks utterly pathetic, sitting on the ground, trying not to cry. Elman is on her feet, so I ignore her pleas and head directly for the guards. They're late, I say loudly for Elman's benefit. Leave them out there. I'm walking away when one of the guards asks how long they should wait. I'll let you know. When I've had enough of teaching these kids a lesson about authority and rules and looking after themselves. I walk quickly back to the dining room and go back to my paperwork. So you've met Bex, my brave Gryffindor protagonist, and you've met Ketty, my perfectionist, power-hungry antagonist. Books 3 to 5 in the series are narrated by both characters in alternating chapters, and the stakes are raised as the 2 young women find themselves on opposite sides of a low-key civil war, and they'll both be held accountable for their actions in the final book, Victory Day. So I'd love to take some questions. Tweet me at Rachel_Churcher or add them to the video feed if you know how. I have no idea how any of this works. I'm going to have a look at my notifications now and see what I can find. Excuse me while I figure out the technology. Fantastic. So, which is my favourite character? That's so hard. So Bex is my Gryffindor soulmate. We both have that kind of bravery thing going on and taking injustice incredibly personally. But Ketty has that determination and backbone and just confidence to keep going, and she knows her own mind. And she's so much fun to write because she can be really evil, and that's so much fun. But I also love Dan. He's such a good friend, and he turns into so much more during the series. He turns into the person who protects the people that he loves. He's someone you want to have on your team. So it's really hard to choose between. What was my biggest challenge writing this series? Oh gosh. I think probably the number of books. I set out to write 2 books, both from Bex's point of view. The book that set up the corrupt government. I don't want to give away too many plot points, but the book that set up the incident that convinces Bex that something's wrong with the world. And then there was going to be a second book that explored the aftermath. And then I sent the book out to my proofreaders, and one of the proofreaders for book 1 just happened to just ask to know a little bit more about Ketty. So I started writing book 2 from Ketty's point of view, retelling the same story, which is a huge challenge because you don't want to say the same things. You've got to have a reason for retelling the story. And they're not always in the same place, so they're not always repeating things. But it was so much fun, and Ketty was such a fun character. that I realised I was going to need at least 3 books, obviously, to tie it up. And that turned into 4 books, and then that turned into 5 books, and book 5 is quite long. So yes, I think the challenge was the fact that the series kept growing, and there are now 5 of them, and then there's also a free preview novella that I wrote again afterwards, which you can find on my website. The link is up in my bio. Did I have the idea before Brexit? Oh, that's a really interesting question, because I guess I had some ideas buzzing around before the Brexit referendum and the Brexit debate, but it was the debate and the referendum that really brought things out for me. And I wondered what it would be like to push a post-Brexit Britain to an extreme, to come up with a worst case scenario and then put my characters into it and find out what it felt like to live in a totalitarian isolationist state. But also I was really interested by the Patriot Act in the US and the fact that people were willing to give up some of their rights and their freedoms in order to protect themselves from terrorists. So I thought, what if we put these things together and come up with a scenario where people are happy to give up rights and give up freedoms because it protects them from, in this case, domestic terrorism, which is why there is an army training camp and why they're using 16-year-olds as the sort of presence on the streets to deter terrorists. So it was all those things together, and I'm also a big fan of dystopian fiction. So I've done a lot of reading and I'm really interested in what it's like to live in a dystopia. So I hope that answers that question. There was another question that popped up that I missed. Oh no, which narrator do I identify with? Tough call again. Probably Bex as the good guy, but there's a lot of shades of grey, so she's not always the good guy, and Ketty may do some good things for not necessarily the right reasons. So identifying with probably Bex. Most fun to write? Definitely Ketty. Definitely the antagonist, because she just gets to be really evil at times. What's my writing process like? Completely amazingly, I was that person at school who always needed an extension to my essay, could never get down to it, could never get down to work, and then was writing all night, or writing essays all night and so on. Absolutely amazingly, when I sat down to write Battleground, I discovered that I can write a YA length book in 6 weeks. So I was trying for NaNoWriMo to write it in 30 days. That didn't happen, but I did finish my first draft, and honestly a first draft, not good enough to publish, within 6 weeks. So what I do then is send it to proofreaders who come back to me with all kinds of comments. My typo ninja is watching right now, thank you Reba, comes up with typos that nobody else notices, and they're there, but we just all miss them. Absolutely amazing. But I have other proofreaders who talk to me about story, about wording, the person who reminds me who has which kind of bullets in their guns. That's incredibly helpful. So I then bring that back and do the edits based on proofreader comments. I'm actually a trained editor, so having had a break while the proofreaders are reading it, I come back to my own work and I do my own editing. I will then send it out again to the proofreaders and again to beta readers, so I can get fresh eyes on something that I think is finished. And when everyone's happy with it and we all think we're finished, that's the point where we go into design and typesetting and working out how we're going to publish. So that's what it looks like. Yeah, again, I hope that answers the question. Did it help me feel better about Brexit? No. Definitely not. For several reasons, but one of them was that obviously I went out of my way to make a scenario that was as bad as I could make it. And while I was writing the series, some of those things started to come true. So there's no civilian internet and there's no civilian mobile phone network in the Battleground series because the government has taken that away in order to stop the domestic terrorism. While I was writing, South Sudan did the same thing to stop protests against the government. France has talked about bringing back conscription for teenagers. into the army, in national service. Various things have started happening, so no, I'm afraid it has not made me feel better at all, but hopefully it's something of a self-avoiding prophecy. I've just noticed the time, so I think I need to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining me and for those fantastic questions. You can find more information on the books at taulerbooks.com. Link is in my Twitter bio, along with a link to the whole series on Amazon. You can also order books 1 and 2 from Waterstones, Barnes & Noble, and any good bookstore. You can download the free... I'll start that again. You can download the free prequel novella from freebook.taulerbooks.com. That's freebook.taulerbooks.com. The first 5 chapters are up on the website, free to read, and you can download the rest if you enjoy them. So thank you again to Aran Wright and to Mary for organising the virtual book fair. Please head over to @MTMaguire for the next session, for her reading in about 5 minutes. She's fab and she's funny, and I'm going to head to her session too. Keep any questions coming via my Twitter feed, and after Mary's session I'll come back and answer the ones I've missed. This has been brilliant. Thank you so much for joining in, and thanks again for organising something like this for us to all meet and share our work. I will see you in the Twitter feed.